What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the PR Bunker podcast. I am your host, Don Martelli. Today, it's about communications, farming, AI, oh my. I'm not joking. We're talking about farms. We're talking about farming and communications, the blend of what has been a forever job, using the land to grow crops. But we're also talking about communications and technology and the latest advancement in communications and telling stories. Proud today to be interviewing Kristina Villa, who's the co-founder of the Farmers Land Trust. Incredible story, personal story about how she came to this particular part in her life to become this co-founder, this incredible organization that is working around the country to support and build the farmland commons movement as it takes root in communities across the country. So tune in to the PR Bunker podcast and learn a little bit about farming, communications, technology, and the blending of all this into one nice little neat podcast. Enjoy it. See ya. Excited for the conversation today. Talking to my new friend, Kristina Villa from the Farmers Land Trust, the Farmers Land Trust. An incredible story as we get into this. I met her through a mutual connection as I was looking for potential connections in the nonprofit space in a variety of ways, and ended up talking to this young, talented woman. And her story is different, incredible, eclectic, and the work that they do at the Farmers Land Trust is just different. It's a great story that I had to get her on this podcast, tell the story, talk about communications, talk about nonprofit, talk about farming, and all of that stuff into a blender. So, Kristina, thank you for joining me on the PR Bunker podcast.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, I have been in active agriculture for about 12 or 13 years now, and my husband and I steward 70 acres of land. We grow vegetables using organic and biodynamic methods and sell to restaurants and grocery stores and in bulk to CSAs. And we also have a herd of cows. And I am the co-executive director and co-founder of the Farmers Land Trust. And really how I got to this work is from being a young beginning farmer who could not afford land and also that struggled with land access, security, and tenure, and also from seeing and knowing and loving and caring about so many aging farmers who I saw struggling with how they were going to transition their land to the next generation, how they were going to exit comfortably to support their retirement, and really wanting to find a way to help bridge that gap. But I think even, before all of that, I think maybe important to share or worth sharing too is that how I came to agriculture, which was, it is such an interesting thing because I know so many people who enter local food production, food growing through the health lens. But for me, it was more about food paradigm, food access, and food security as someone who grew up in an impoverished urban area without access to food. And, as a young person, I struggled with where our next meal was going to come from. And so I think I just grew up being very interested and focused on food. And as a young adult, I was spending time in food emergency relief organizations and soup kitchens and so forth. And in that moment, I remember thinking that, if we could just feed people, that would solve everything. And so I started that journey with like, okay, let's go to those emergency food relief organizations and feed people. And then from there, it was like, oh, wait, getting the food is so hard. And this food that we're giving them is not nutritious. It's not healthy. And so then this light bulb went off where I was like, oh, I could grow food, which I don't even know still to this day, like where that idea came from, because I never knew anyone who grew food. I never had the experience with growing food. Like, it is still so crazy to me. Like, I don't know how that idea even came into my head, but I started this little garden in my yard and then started bringing all the produce that I was growing, like to those food pantries and to those soup kitchens. And it was just such an exhilarating moment of like, we could feed people if we just grew food. So from there, I started learning more about farming, but also, in that same time where I was interacting and volunteering at these food relief organizations, I was in college for media and communication. So like my background is, my formal education is in communications and media and marketing and so forth. And so when I delved and I just like took a total left turn after I graduated college and like moved to this old farm because I was like, I need to learn how to farm. I, you know, I started living in this barn just so that I could be part of this farm and like learn how to farm. And at that same time, the farmer, the aging, retiring, older farmer that I was learning from and apprenticing under, he needed in his business the skills that
Got it.
I brought in communication and marketing. And so really that's where those two things converged for me. And, the shift from growing food and thinking that that is how we could solve so many of the world's problems to actually it's about land. Like that's how we can solve so many of the same problems that happened at those same times. And so coming to be at the Farmers Land Trust and co-founding this organization that's working around the country to not just protect farmland, but to also transition it to the next generation and give secure, equitable tenure to farmers wanting to grow food using regenerative practices. I feel like it is such a great just convergence of my life experience and interests and also the education and training that I have because this skill set of communication, media, and marketing, along with this passion for land and agriculture, has really helped me get to be where I am today. And I'm just so grateful for it all.
I want to stick on that point about storytelling now. As the co-founder, and you have your hands and eyes in every inch of the organization, and clearly as somebody who's a thought leader in this space, I think you've done speaking opportunities and you've been interviewed elsewhere. I mean, what's your organization's strategy on communications? How do you tell that story, and to what end? What are the goals around communications that you focus on around comms?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about this because, yeah, I do get interviewed on other podcasts and it's always about like the organization and the model and all of that. And like people can hear about that in a lot of different places. And also, it's very spelled out on our website. But this storytelling part and the importance of this is just not teased out enough. And I don't think it's utilized enough at other organizations or like the impact of it is not seen broadly. But really, with our work at the Farmers Land Trust, shared, like we're protecting farmland in a new and innovative and creative way. And we're using this model, this farmland commons model, to transition land into community ownership to honor and support the legacy of those aging, retiring farmers or those landowners who want to see their land be used for land justice and food production agriculture for local communities, and then also to support economically viable businesses for next generation farmers. But we are a small nonprofit land trust working around the country, and we are new. And so the amount of impact that we are actually going to have in amount of like acres conserved or protected or like people impacted, that is not where our greatest impact is going to be. I really believe that our greatest impact is going to be in the stories that we tell and the examples that we show and the models that we have of a new way of how land access, tenure, security, ownership can work through this farmland commons. And those ripples outward of people seeing these stories and seeing themselves in the people that are part of it and seeing how they have those same attributes or resources that they can do the same thing too is really
Mm.
where a movement is going to be ignited and how this can be replicated around the country. And so storytelling is such a large part of what we do. So we're actually talking at a very fun time because we are
Hmm.
announcing all of our farmland commons this upcoming week or two. And so all of the stories are on our website
Awesome.
of who we're working with, where we're working, and what those communities are. And it's incredibly diverse. So we have examples of aging, retiring farmers who are positioned and able to donate their land to preserve and continue their legacy of biodynamic agriculture. We're working with um, young farmers who need secure land tenure, who have been growing food for their communities in various ways, but lack land security. We're working with nonprofits who have been talking about wanting to support land access, but who were unable to
Hmm.
find a way to tangibly do that. And so this farmland commons model gives them that way to be actively engaged in that. We're working with non-farming landowners who want to put their land toward good. And so all of these examples are on our website, and the storytelling part is so crucial. So, you know, offering those longer deep dives into the people and the places and their life story and how it came to be through long form content. We have a fabulous writer on staff who tells beautiful poetic stories that like break
Love
your
that.
heart but heal it too at the same time. She's so fabulous. And we also are so fortunate to have interest from other media outlets and press that are telling these stories. And then, through our own communications of building out our website to include the creative aspects of all these stories, the pictures that tell that story. And also, I would just share that in this like storytelling PR components, that things that I and we as an organization really focus on that I think have helped propel us forward in our success with this is the different content pieces that help to make an engaging, rich story. So, for instance, we have a great illustrator who has created illustrations that are specific to our brand and mission and help to add a playfulness to the work that's so meaningful and deep, but can also be boring at times. And we also focus on our newsletter content and social media.
Hmm.
Social media gets such a bad rap, but it is such a great tool. It's free and it's such a great tool to really help people identify with you as an organization and to learn who you are as what your vision is, what your mission is, what your principles are, the areas that you're focused on, where you stand on certain issues, and what you're trying to do day to day. And that audience then becomes that donor base that supports you in the work and also becomes your team that you're working with. So I cannot talk highly enough about how important it is for us as an organization and other organizations too to focus
Mm.
more on that social media aspect. And yeah, just that content creation and storytelling piece is so important in furthering our mission and our work, and I see that be true for other nonprofits.
Talked about like impact, right? Because storytelling is, you own the story, you craft the narrative, and you eloquently described the visual elements, the language being used, so all these things putting into a blender, if you will. What's from your perspective as a leader and co-founder of the organization, what do you hope that storytelling will do for the organization? Is it expanding the mission? Is it awareness? Is it fundraising? What are the business attributes that you think storytelling attaches itself to?
Yeah, I mean, definitely all of the ones that you just mentioned. I think that the storytelling piece helps to create a larger network of support around these individual land projects and these individual farmland commons. And it creates supporters for that land, for that farmer. And when I say supporters, I mean people who are sure going to donate. I also mean people who will buy from that farm, support that farm, or become their new audience that are engaging with their social media content, subscribe to their newsletter, and those connections that are made then of networking connections that always lead to other
Yeah.
things of, farm machinery being offered or networked or like opportunities for market increase. Like all of those things end up building a more resilient food system in the places that we work. And so for the specific farmland commons, that storytelling ends up benefiting that community in greater
Mm.
ways than we can actually
Yep.
track
I
and
hear it.
create data for. And for us as an organization, I would say that helps
Sure.
obviously
Absolutely.
in cultivating donor support when people can see the impact happening. But more importantly, it's that then other people around the country see that they can create these and approach us with land opportunities or community building opportunities on their own. Like they see these stories, they see these models, they're inspired by them, and then they want to do them. And really, what we're after is change in how land is owned and how land is accessed, and whether people reach out to us to work with us directly to do it, or if they just see this model and then use the open source resources available on our website to do it themselves without ever touching it, that would be success, and telling these stories is how we're going to see that happen.
Awareness. You're building a platform that can be applied. So it's not like you all coming in and fixing, problems. You're providing education, platform awareness, and I love the story arc you've created here is about the transition between the farmers that have been around for probably decades, and young, energetic, spirited, in tune with technology. So farming has been around forever, basically. Right now, you're adding these new, like, AI. You've got social media, all the tools that we now have at our disposal. Imagine if they were around years ago to tell these stories. And where I'm landing is, I always love to ask my folks that join my podcast, like, is there a quintessential, like, a vignette story that just talks about everything that you've all done and the impact you've made? Like, here's Farmer Don who's struggling with this. We helped him with this. Is there any sort of, like, anecdotes, small stories that just really showcase that the value prop that you all provide to farmers around the country that you want to share?
Yeah, thank you so much for all that. I totally would love to answer that
Okay.
question, but I also
Sure.
heard
Fire away.
something in what you shared that I just want to like go back and touch on, because when you talk about like it's not like us just coming in and fixing everything, I think I so appreciate that you recognize that. And when we created the Farmers Land Trust, that was such an important part of the organization that we were creating, is that we know that for us to have real impact and create real change on the ground, that we can't be the ones who have to do it all, and that it can't be that we control or own this model or the legal structures of the templates or the documents used. Like, we have to make it so that anyone can access it anywhere, so that they can pick it up and do it too. And that's really how we're going to see positive impact happen in this realm that we're wanting to have impact in and work in. So like, thank you so much for realizing that, because everything we do is open source.
Sure, that all the farmers you have, including yourself, that have learned, struggled, and are at a particular place, you've built community through this organization, right? And community is such a powerful thing that, business owners, whether they be in a for-profit, nonprofit, farming, or in the concrete jungle, if you will, community is really important. Finding your people, but also organizations like yours that carry that flag, that can be the beacon of resources and assistance and just a hand on somebody's back. Because you've gone through this personally, the struggles of folks that are working the land and looking to just put food on the table, and that's a hard thing. Roof over your head, food on the table, we all kind of take for granted, and it's something that I think conversations like this shed a light on the importance of supporting. So if you are in an urban community like Boston, New York, there are ways to support organizations like yours. And so, I guess a follow-up question to that would be, if somebody sees this story and is so compelled to say, man, this is an incredible organization, how can people get involved? And they might be in the most urban community of urban, like New York City, for example, but if they hear this story and they're compelled by it and moved by it, how can people get involved?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely thefarmerslandtrust.org is our website, and there are so many resources there that people could dive into from us that we've created, but also that we're sharing from other organizations. All of our social media platforms are linked there, and you can find us on any of your social media, whatever's your favorite. Please connect with us, and we'd love to just stay in touch that way. Definitely donations. We're a nonprofit, so we rely
Absolutely.
on philanthropic giving for our sustainability, and we would so appreciate that. I think that something that is important to note is that we don't have a minimum or a maximum acreage that we are willing to work with. So in that urban setting, the amount of land needed to really make community impact is very different than the amount of land needed to make important impact in a rural setting. And so I think something that I've been thinking about lately that seems important to share right here is that people often don't realize how much they have and what they can do with that. And so if you have land, or you have things and resources to give, whether that be your personal skills or assets, or your financial assets, or your land, like, you can do so much with so little. And I think that is something that I've really been thinking about lately, is that so many people are way more wealthy than they realize, or have more to give than they realize, and what that they could do with that, and how they can be part of a transformative community experience with stepping forward to realize and then take action in that way.
What's next for you? What's next for the organization? What's in all the things you do, from being a communicator, the thought leader, content? What's next for the organization, and what do you see in terms of you carrying that story forward? What's next for the organization yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So we are, as I shared, launching publicly all of these farmland commons that are in development that we've been working on, and that is a huge step for us. We're very excited to share all of that. And all of these that are being developed are starting with one parcel of land, but they are going to hold more than one. And so next step is to create more of these farmland commons so that there's at least one in every state, and then get them all to the point where they're holding at least 4 parcels of land and maybe even up to 12, so that that community's land base for a sustainable, resilient food system to be created there locally is secure.
Other than your website, if they want to follow up with you directly, can they find you on LinkedIn? Where can people connect with you if they want to interview you, have you on a TED Talk, speaking opportunities, or send you $1 million check? Where can they find you?
Yeah, you can send $1 million check to P.O. Box 195 in Cookeville, Tennessee. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So Kristina Villa, Kristina with a K, and Villa, V as in Victor, Illa.
I love
and
that.
on Instagram,
The one and only.
Kristina
Love that.
Villa. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's right. I love it. Well, I love the energy.
No one.
I love the
Okay.
contrast between, getting in the dirt, farming, and the speed of communications and technology, and the delta between those two things, and how you've clearly planted that seed, pun intended, to grow into this particular leadership opportunity with your career. I love the trajectory. I love the story. Anybody that's out there, listen to this, and if you don't think you don't have a green thumb, Kristina and our team here can probably help you figure out how you get involved in some way, shape, or form, to learn, to cultivate, to introduce. We as a society should be telling each other stories, especially for nonprofits like this that are impacting lives every single day. So, Kristina, I can't thank you enough for being here and for the work that you do for folks that, need to put food on the table and to learn how to grow and own their land, grow their land and profit from it, but also do good at the same time. So great work. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.